Okay, we have an object from Norway we're going to take a look at. This is easy Emma Crake, I guess that's how you say it. But this one's pretty neat. This is the enhanced one, so we can just kind of see a little bit more of the details. We won't use this when we do the analysis because there's some key aspects in here that are going to require us to be as close to the original video as possible. If we use enhancement, it's going to hide or mask some of the things that we're looking for. Specifically, as we usually start, I like to start with the motion blur, right? So that to me is one of the most obvious ways to determine if something has been faked or not. So let's go here. I got a side-by-side. All I've done was I've taken the original video that was downloaded off the site, and I've zoomed in here on the left on the object, and I've zoomed in and on the bottom in some of the buildings on the right, looking for an object that's the same luminance. Because when we're looking at motion blur, we really need to have something that's the same luminance values. So now as we go through this, we can see frame by frame. Let's look here first on the left. The object is not really doing much motion blur. There's a couple frames in here where there is a little bit, but it looks like it's more algorithmic, where the compression of the video is creating it. So I'm not seeing motion blur there. If we look in the same spot in the down below here on something that's bright, there is no motion blur there, and as the frame starts moving, it starts to blur. All right. Now, there's some things to think about here. On the right, and this is why we use similar luminance value objects, because if you have something that's hot, right, something that's really pounding the pixels on the sensor with lots of photons and oversaturating it, there is a tiny amount of time where it needs to cool off. And that depends on the sensor speed, okay? And the algorithm that is doing the compression of the video also has some delay in how it actually will fall off the luminance on the object. So if we look here, let's look on the right, we could see something here that looks to be very motion blurred. Okay, so right now it's a circle, and we blur out, and it stays blurred out as it moves. All right, and that's a very bright object. But now if we look at an object that is very similar in luminance values as our UAP thingy here, you can see it matches, actually it disappears there for a second. It matches the motion blur. All right, and there's other areas in frame that will match it as well that you can just look at for yourself if you'd like. But so for me, this passes the motion blur test. I believe this is an object that is actually been recorded in the original recording. Now watching this, it's interesting because there's a permanence to this object, right? These two lights on the side they don't seem to be attached to it, at least not that you can see in the visible light spectrum, and they're blinking almost to mimic an aircraft. And they are absolutely in physical space locked in together. So they are moving in complete unison. But what I'm noticing is the permanence of the main body of the object that we're looking at. And that's when I went and pulled a frame that had the highest level of detail, and this is what you see. So to me, this is a spheroidal object. Maybe not a sphere, but it's something that is like this, right? It could be an octagon, it could be something else. I don't think it's a square or a cube. Maybe it is, but there's not enough detail to really tell there. When you look at the actual video at the bottom, you can see that the light source is most likely going to be the moon, and it's coming from this direction, how you see the light on the buildings themselves. So for me, that matches where the light is hitting on this object. And if it's a three-dimensional object that has like a sphere type of shape, maybe it has some surfaces on it, but certainly, three-dimensional, it's showing that. So not sure. This is, I don't know what it is, but I can say that with pretty high certainty, this has not been a modified video. So whatever is there is truly there. It's been recorded. There's no wings. I don't see any very obvious holes for air to come out of. So I don't see kinetic thrust keeping this thing moving. It's moving like, kind of instantaneous. I mean, it's not like going 0 to 100 miles an hour in a nanosecond, but it is certainly moving, and it's moving in a very flat manner, which these things tend to do, right? The acceleration seems to be linear. It doesn't accelerate like, woo. It's an acceleration, constant acceleration. So I think this is real. I think it's this object. I think it's a sphere. And there was a sphere checking out some things in Norway. That's what this one is, I believe.